It started with a number, not a big number, not something anyone would notice at first glance, just 3 digits. And yet, over the course of a lifetime, that number quietly decides how much more you will pay for the exact same life as someone else. Let's imagine 2 people, same age, same city, same job. They wake up at the same time every morning, drive similar cars, earn similar salaries, and live in nearly identical homes just a few streets apart. But from the outside, their lives look identical. If you walked past them, you wouldn't be able to tell the difference. But behind the scenes, something very different is happening. Something invisible. Over the next 20-30 years, one of them will quietly lose hundreds of thousands of dollars more than the other. Not because they made reckless decisions, not because they gambled or took crazy risks, but because of how the system sees them. Here's the part most people never realize: the financial world doesn't just care about how much money you make. It cares about how predictable you are, how you behave, and how profitable you are over time. And based on that, it assigns you a score. Now, most people think this score is about responsibility. They believe it's a reflection of discipline or trustworthiness or financial maturity. But that's not entirely true, because this system doesn't reward you for being wealthy. It rewards you for being useful. Useful to lenders, useful to institutions, useful to a system built around lending, borrowing, and interest. And this is where things start to get interesting. Imagine you want to buy something big. A house. For example, you walk into the same office as someone else. You choose the same property, same size, same location, same everything. But when it's time to sign the paperwork, something subtle changes. Your rate is slightly higher, not by much, maybe just a small percentage difference, something that feels almost insignificant in the moment, and that's exactly why it's dangerous. Because small percentages, when stretched over long periods of time, don't stay small. They grow quietly, gradually, invisibly. That tiny difference ends up costing you tens of thousands, sometimes hundreds of thousands, for the exact same purchase. And it doesn't stop there. That same invisible system follows you everywhere. It affects how much you pay for financing, how much security you're asked to provide, how institutions evaluate your reliability, even when you've done nothing obviously wrong, even when you've worked hard, stayed consistent, and followed the rules you were taught. Because here's the uncomfortable truth: this system isn't designed to measure your success. It's designed to measure risk and extract value from it. The higher the perceived risk, the higher the cost. The lower the perceived risk, the easier life becomes. So 2 people can walk through life side by side, but one of them is constantly paying a little extra at every step. A little more here, a little more there, and over time that difference compounds. This is what most people miss. They think financial loss happens through big mistakes, bad investments, poor decisions, obvious failures, but in reality a lot of money is lost in much quieter ways. Ways that don't feel like loss in the moment. A slightly higher monthly payment, a slightly higher rate, a slightly larger deposit, nothing dramatic, nothing that triggers alarm. But together, they form a pattern, and that pattern slowly pulls money away from you without you ever realizing how much is gone. Now here's where it gets even more interesting. This system doesn't just react to what you do, it reacts to how you interact with it. If you avoid it completely, you might think you're playing it safe, staying out of debt, avoiding unnecessary risk. But from the system's perspective, you become invisible. And invisibility in this context isn't always a good thing, because if there's no history, there's no trust. And if there's no trust, there's uncertainty, and uncertainty gets priced in. On the other hand, if you interact with the system consistently, borrowing carefully, paying back on time, managing your usage, you start to build something, not wealth, but reputation. And that reputation changes how the system treats you. Suddenly, opportunities become cheaper. As access becomes easier, friction disappears. Not because you became richer overnight, but because you became more predictable. more understandable, more valuable in the eyes of the system, and that's the key shift. This isn't just about money, it's about perception. The system doesn't see your intentions, it sees patterns, and those patterns determine your cost of living in ways most people never fully notice. Now think about what this means long-term. Every time you pay slightly more than necessary, that's money that could have been invested, money that could have grown, money that could have created more freedom for you later. Instead, it disappears, transferred quietly to institutions that understand this system far better than most individuals ever will. And over decades, that lost potential becomes enormous. This is why two people can earn the same income but end up in completely different financial positions, not because of how hard they worked, but because of how efficiently they moved through the system. One minimizes friction, the other unknowingly pays for it, and the gap between them grows wider every year. So what's the takeaway here? It's not that the system is good or bad. It's not about avoiding it completely. It's about understanding it, because once you understand the rules, you stop playing blindly. You start noticing where money leaks, where small differences turn into big costs, where decisions today shape outcomes decades later. And most importantly, you realize something powerful. Financial success isn't just about earning more. It's about keeping more by reducing unnecessary loss. Because the biggest threats to your wealth aren't always visible. They don't always feel dramatic. They don't announce themselves. They show up quietly, in percentages, in terms, in conditions you barely question, and unless you pay attention, they stay hidden. But once you see them, you can't unsee them, and that's when everything starts to change. Because now you're no longer reacting, you're choosing, you're making decisions with awareness, with clarity, with intention. And that alone can save you more money over a lifetime than most people realize is even possible. In the end, it all comes back to that one idea: not all costs are visible. Not all losses feel like losses. But they are there, working quietly in the background. And the moment you understand how they work, you give yourself the chance to keep what was always yours. And maybe, for the first time, actually get ahead.